Ooh, a spicy question. I
because
love
the
it.
writing is sort of everything, right? Like you kind of can fix plot holes, but if the writing isn't
So some
there,
readers love that, and some readers are like, but I wanted more of this. So it's kind of a gamble.
Hello and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. On today's episode, I am joined by literary agent Maria Whelan. Hello.
Hello, Jamie. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. I'm getting a little bit of a cold. I can feel my throat closing up, but other than that, I'm okay. How are you, Maria?
I am well. I am pretty much the picture of health at the moment, so I'm glad we're doing this virtually, so I'm not catching anything that you might have for now.
Well, that's good. Let's jump right in. With agents, I think it's always really interesting to start with your kind of origins into the publishing industry. So the first question I would like to ask you is, did you always know growing up that you wanted to work in publishing?
That is a fantastic question. No, I absolutely did not. I think anyone who kind of ends up in this industry, though, is probably similar to me in the sense that they were maybe a voracious reader. Growing up, I was always kind of reading. And I remember my dad always being like, why are you reading that trash? Like, you should be reading the greats. And I was like, yeah, I know there'll come a day. But I always kind of, read the books that I loved and stuck to it. And, maybe if I did read the greats singularly, I maybe wouldn't have arrived here. But I always kind of followed my own taste, which I think is a good trait to have as a literary agent when trying to make their own list.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I had your colleague Rachel Neely on not long ago, and she had said a similar thing where she never thought she'd sort of be someone to be in publishing because she liked, whatever the top chart thing was at the local supermarket. And I was saying, well, little did you know that like those are the ones that are the real commercial successes. Those are the ones making a lot of money.
Exactly. I know. And I mean, I think as you kind of get deeper into this industry, you find out that, you have to kind of obviously stick to the things that you love, but have a kind of commercial eye as well. It's good to have both.
Yeah, it's about finding the balance, right? So you sort of found your way into this and sort of based off your love of reading. You studied, I got this from your bio online. So you studied English and drama in Dublin, then you did a master's in modern literature at the University of Edinburgh. And then, am I right in thinking that you actually got your start in publishing in the US, or had you already sort of got a foot in the door before you went to the US?
No, I was in Edinburgh and I was kind of like, maybe I could live here for the rest of my life, and then realized I couldn't because I wasn't a student, nor was I a very wealthy retiree. So it was either come to London and, find a job in London, or try something a bit different and go to the States. So I did that. But I really think when I was doing my master's, I think that's when I really decided, I do like this kind of book thing. I did the master's in English because I was like, oh, well, this will be my last opportunity as a person to read as much as they can before they get a proper 9 to 5. But then in doing so, I don't know, I was just always going to the student MFA readings and hanging out with the writers. And I was always just like a moth to the flame in terms of chatting to them. And I always wanted to hear about the craft and how they wrote their story. And I kind of, the seeds were maybe sown there because, I always was kind of interested in the story behind their story.
Yes.
And I didn't know at the time, but there is actually a career that could be made from that kind of weird passion, I suppose.
Yeah. Who would have thought all these publishing's a big industry?
I know. Yes. And then I moved to the States, and that's where I kind of realized people publish, people do this for a living.
Yeah. And you got your first role was an intern, right?
Sadly, yes. I guess like any industry, you have to do a bit of the interning, but that was fun. I was at a small kind of indie publisher called Akashic Books, and their kind of preoccupation was degentrifying literature. So they
Okay.
had lots of cool writers that kind of were doing different experimental things, and it was a very diverse roster of writers. And then from there, I got into agenting, but on the foreign rights side.
Okay.
And would you like me to explain that?
Yeah, let's hear it. We're all about discovering what things, because like like you said, it turns out there is a whole industry. There's a lot of different things, a lot of moving parts happening. So yeah, I'd love to hear about all the kind of minutiae between the different parts and the kind of your journey specifically and your experiences. So yeah, foreign rights. Tell us
Foreign
about
rights.
what that is, and I guess why it's different from literary agency.
Great idea, or great question. Well, foreign rights, it's kind of I would say the backbone of an agency in a sense. They are the people that are responsible for selling a book in international markets
Hmm.
after a book has been sold in the domestic market. So in the English speaking world, it's usually, you sell your book by a primary agent, a domestic primary agent in the UK or the US. And then you have teams of people that kind of want you to succeed and, take over the world and make sure that your book is in Spain and in, Brazil and wherever. For some reason, I'm like losing my mind and can't remember any other countries.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of their role to see what books kind of will straddle the cultural divide and kind of resonate with people that maybe aren't able that aren't located in the US or the UK and the other territories that are kind of bound to the contracts. So yeah, and the volume in that role, in the kind of the selling of books in that role is far greater, I think, than when you're a primary, domestic agent. You're maybe not sending out as many books, but for me, it was a great job because I'm from Ireland. I moved to the States, so I always kind of had maybe not so much of a US centric eye. I always was kind of looking kind of overseas anyway. So it was a great job for me at the beginning anyway.
Okay. And then you moved into, I guess, domestic literary agency.
Exactly.
Yes. Right. Okay. And
And
that was
that,
with Inkwell Management in
yes,
2017.
you did your homework.
I did my homework, and so that's when you started had you already started building a list before you went into that role, or did you start that role and then from scratch you were like, time to build a list?
Yeah, exactly. I was a small green baby when I was in the foreign rights department. So then when we went over to Inkwell Management, that's when I started building my list. But of course, I had to be an assistant for a few years before that
Hmm.
because, you have to learn all the people, you have to kind of learn, what makes a good book and what actually sells. And I'll be honest, I think I had a few false starts at the beginning. I was like, this sounds good, or this is so different. And then, you try it and some of them succeed, some of them fail.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, from there on, I was just so kind of addicted to the process. And, there's the fun of this kind of job is no 2 days are the same. And some books you think are going to be smash hits and they aren't. And then some books that you're like, I'm not sure, end up, really exceeding expectations. So
Hmm.
everything's kind of a gamble as well, which I love.
Okay. uh, but there's something nice about I speak to a lot of authors on this podcast, and I've had several authors on who have, the first book has not landed, and then they think, oh, this other thing that I wrote, which I'm not impressed by, that's their kind of breakout hit, and that's the thing that kind of puts them on the map as an author. It's funny how often that happens, and how you just kind of can't see it when you're that close to it.
100%. And it's funny. I think I've spoken in a few panels, and sometimes you're asked kind of, what do you wish that all authors knew before they get started, their kind of quest to find an agent and then a publisher. And I sometimes say, like, just because you have an agent doesn't mean your first book will succeed, but maybe your second or your third. It's all a long process. And I suppose the more books you write, the better you become. That's what I've found.
Yeah.
And the key is to find an agent that will stick with you through thick and thin, I think.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, I think most of the agents I've spoken to will say something along the lines of like, yeah, you're when you sign with an author, you're investing with the author and their writing. You're not investing in the one book that they sent to you on the query.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It should be ideally a very long relationship.
Yeah. So Inco Management started in 2017. You were there for about 8 years, I think. And then very recently, as of, was it September this year, you joined Mushins Entertainment.
I know. Yes. The 29th. And that's always going to be in my brain because it was actually my birthday. So it was the oddest birthday.
Oh, wow. That is funny.
Yeah, I think it's fortuitous. But yes, it will always be the one that I will remember. Yes, I started at Mushins and I was so excited to start. I think as an agent, it's hard to sometimes move agencies because, ideally authors kind of sign with you because of you, but sometimes they sign because of also the agency itself.
Sure.
But I was so relieved that when I made my big announcement, everyone was like, yay, Mushins. And what's great about Mushins is, it's a small but mighty team, and they're great at what they do. And most of my authors were very familiar with Juliet, and knew a lot of the writers that she and also Rachel worked on. So it wasn't a traumatic move at all.
Okay. Yeah. My understanding is that when it's relatively common, agents will move agencies at some point in their career, and that you for the most part, most of your authors will stay with you. I was wondering though, because you didn't just move agencies, you also moved country. You
Yes.
moved halfway around the world. Was that did that change things? Did that make it more difficult, or are you all just kind of like, yeah, I mean, we can still speak whenever, the internet has solved that issue?
That's a great question. And that was a concern that I kind of had to think about before I delivered the news to my authors.
Yeah.
Because, there is a 5-hour time difference. But you're absolutely right. We RIP Skype, but we have Zoom, we have WhatsApp, we have, Google Meet, whatever you can think of, we have. But and then the time difference, I mean, a lot of writers I find are, for whatever reason, a lot of the authors I work with, a lot of them are early morning risers, and they start their the writing day before work and whatnot. So I got lucky in that sense. But it's one of those jobs you kind of you make the time.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that. I wake up and I have a lot of emails. I go to bed and there are still emails coming in, but that's okay. I still love it.
Yeah. I mean, I think no matter what country you and the people you're working with are from, I think literary agency is always one of those like every hour's kind of job. Because if you're not working, if you're not like on the clock, then you're reading your submissions, you're like trying to keep up with what's happening in the industry and things like that.
100%. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of, even when you're on holiday, you're like, I could read this great book, but there's a submission that just came in, and yes, the job is never done.
Is it a learning curve moving to the UK, having to sort of meet the editors that work here domestically versus the sort of network that you built up in the US?
Oh my goodness. Yes. I mean, I kind of, it's a funny feeling because, when I'm working with my authors, I send them, the list of editors who I'm planning to submit their work to. And I'm always like, oh, I know that these are just names on a page, but they specialize in X, Y, and Z. And now I'm kind of like looking at the names on the page over here of editors, and I'm like, I don't know what any of you do, but I'm learning fast, and I've had the opportunity to go to some of the major publishing houses and introduce myself, and ask them what they're on the hunt for, and tell them who I am and introduce myself. Now I can just send them the link to this podcast, which is marvelous. Just say like, listen. But what I'm finding is the editors in the States they want the same over here, which is good. They say that, and I hope that is the case.
Okay. But I imagine obviously there is like a preference for different sort of slightly different genres, slightly different writing styles or voices in the UK versus the US.
Definitely. I mean, I think the writers that kind of make it big in the US that are from the UK, they do that because they're really just outstanding and are kind of talking about or writing about topics that both sides of the pond can relate to. But there are certain genres where you want your own kind of homegrown
Sure.
yeah, writer writing about these certain issues, which I'm lucky in a sense that I think right now I'm slowly signing more UK authors, which is amazing. But I have the US kind of experience to know what people want over there. So I'm hoping to continue to work with, the US writers and kind of keep my finger in the pie there. But yes, I think right now I'm also searching for UK based and Irish writers.
Okay, great. Yeah, so you're sort of building a sort of second list, a sort of adjacent list in some ways to the one that you currently have, which is very US centric. Now you want a more kind of UK centric thing to work on as well, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not strictly. I mean, if I what I've been kind of finding is that a lot of people also, they're very much into translation as well. So I'm open to all sorts.
Okay, great. Well, I was just about to bring up the list. You are currently open to submissions, looking to get some more domestic authors on your list. So let's talk about it. In a broad sense, what are the genres, styles, age groups that you represent?
Okay, where to start? In terms of genre, my heart will always lie with literary fiction, but I think sometimes literary fiction is slightly harder to sell these days. But I have a very, very soft spot for horror. I love a dead body. I love anything dark, but not just for dark sake. I feel like I like things that kind of grapple with dark truths about humanity, and sometimes in like kind of unexpected ways, where there's kind of some sense of humor to it as well, sardonic wit
Right.
throughout. I like speculative as well. I feel like speculative fiction allows you to kind of examine life and society in a way that's kind of unexpected. I also, anything that's kind of in the folklore realm also is very intriguing to me. I think, especially, I think you can just kind of get an insight into so many different cultures through that way. I'm currently kind of reading a submission that came in, and it's Norwegian folklore. I'm like, wow, this is something I can kind of see the parallels between that and maybe the folklore found in Ireland, and you kind of realize reading more in this kind of space that folklore here is the same as folklore there in different kind of ways. Magical realism is also kind of something that I look out for. I'm always on the hunt for kind of perspectives that we don't really see that often. I recently read The Hunchback, which is an amazing translated book. And it's about a woman that kind of is differently abled, and just to hear her point of view and how she navigates the world was kind of staggering and something I maybe haven't thought about before. I like retellings, complicated friendships, family dynamics, the usual.
The usual. Okay, so it sounds pretty eclectic. Maybe it would be helpful then to say things that you do not represent, that are absolutely not right for you.
Okay. I mean, the funny thing is I'll almost pick up anything to read, but that doesn't always kind of, I think, translate into what I think I can sell. So I just think that there are so many people out there that do an incredible job selling fantasy. Mushins has an amazing reputation for selling fantasy, and I don't think I'm close to as good as my colleagues in doing so. So fantasy is one thing that I'm a little sheepish about. Romantasy as well.
Yeah.
I'm also, YA and middle grade and new adult. I can't say I'm that familiar with the kind of publishing landscape and trying to sell those books. I do want to mention I do nonfiction as well. And that's been fun because Mushins Entertainment, before I came along to kind of stir the pot, they weren't doing nonfiction so much. So I've kind of opened my submissions to taking on nonfiction, which is an entirely different beast, I think.
Yes. Yeah. So what kind of, is there a kind of nonfiction that you're more interested in, or are you really just open to whatever concepts are thrown your way?
Somewhat like fiction. I kind of seek nonfiction that examines overlooked facets of society. I worked on a book that kind of looked at reasons why people would get married beyond the kind of the romantic urges. And how kind of our society is set up to privilege married people. So books like that kind of look at our society, environmental books, women's health, prescriptive novels prescriptive books as well. And I guess untold histories.
Okay.
So a little bit of everything,
Yeah. And I mean, the tricky thing about nonfiction to sell to a publisher is that you basically, it kind of has to be something that is new, or if you're looking at something that there's already like a lot of books on, it has to be a new perspective or a new take on that thing.
100%.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, it's similarly, I think, with memoir, it has to be, I do some select memoir, but it has to be kind of a point of view or kind of an experience that is so different and out there that people will read it and be like, I can see kind of kernels of kind of universal truths to this, but it's not like, my neighbor telling me how they came to live beside me. It has to be something so kind of out there and outlandish, almost like stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Yeah, I get that. It's like when if you're watching one of those those are like documentaries where they do like a theatrical retelling of things that happened, and I'm always shocked that this is non-fiction, that this is a thing that actually happened and this hasn't been written by someone. Just before we head over to the cabin, we're closing in on the end of 2025. We talked about your list in a broad sense. Are there any like very specific things, maybe in the zeitgeist, that like a story or a setting or a character or a specific retelling that you'd really love to see pop up in your submissions inbox?
It's funny when you say zeitgeist, because I'm always like, I see it, I want it, and then I'm maybe a beat behind.
Okay.
I would love a book that is set in kind of the wilderness, lush kind of atmosphere. I'm terrified of the Loch Ness Monster, but I also really would like a book featuring the Loch Ness Monster.
Okay.
I think when I was living in Edinburgh, I even went as far as Loch Ness on a tour bus, and I couldn't get out. I was so terrified. I'm always looking for books, kind of family sagas that are pretty out there and something we haven't seen before. And I'd love to see more humorous books in my inbox, and books that maybe kind of make you feel happy about life, but maybe done in a kind of funny way, ideally.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty good. You got a few specifics in there. Loch Ness is very specific.
That's
so
very specific.
Maybe
yeah.
someone out there is listening and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I have a Loch Ness story."
Oh, one more thing. I love, and I work on a select cookbooks and anything that's revolved around food.
Okay.
I grew up, my parents owned Irish bars and restaurants. This isn't a plug for them because they've closed down. But I love eating. I love food. I'm terrible in the kitchen, but
Okay.
yes, food-centric novels, ideally.
Okay, not non-fiction, food-centric novels.
No. Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay, very cool. So we're at the point in the episode where I ask you, Maria, if you were snowed in at a cozy woodland cabin in the middle of nowhere, which book would you hope to have with you?
This is a very difficult question. And of course, I would not want to, I'm thinking when I think of a book, I want a big book that I can read again and again, of course. Not one that I'm tempted halfway through to, start ripping apart and throw into the fire for kindling. So for me, it would have to be The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. It's somewhat contemporary. I mean, I think it came out in 2023, and it's
okay.
It's kind of actually a book that I'm seeking for my own list. It's a comedy, tragedy, family saga, following four characters, and they're kind of, it splits into their four points of view and just grapples with kind of family life. And it is devastating in parts. Paul Murray, he is so talented in kind of writing in each of their voices, and they're so distinct, and you kind of get their version of events in just remarkably distinct ways. And it's set in Ireland, and the ending is so brutal and open-ended. Yeah, okay. So you're just sitting there, and I think how it ends would still kind of haunts me, because I'm like, how did, like, what actually did happen? And it's kind of building in this throughout, it's, you know, it's very pacey. It's a very long novel, but it's just building to this kind of breaking point. And then it just ends. So I think the way it ends, after, if I were, you know, in this cabin, I would just sit there like I still kind of do, haunted by what the hell happened.
That's great. I love an open-ended. I don't think I've read many books that have an open ending per se. I probably have. I can't think of any right now. But yeah, things like American Psycho, Inception, when they leave you with the thing at the end and you think, you were like, what? Well, what did actually happen? Wait, what was real?
Yes.
That's great.
I know, it's infuriating. It was funny because I read this, and I also had seen the film Anatomy of a Fall, which is also open-ended in its ending. And I think they both tormented me so much that I don't know, there was something in the air when both of those you know, forms of media came out. But yeah, I highly recommend it. And it also, I think what draws me to family sagas is that you might think your own family is pretty bonkers and whatnot, but then you read, you know, these kind of works and you're like, no, we are so normal, so boring and normal.
Yes. And thank goodness we're so boring and normal.
Thank goodness. Exactly.
Thank goodness. Amazing. That's a cool choice, and pretty modern. I'm sure that a lot of people listening might not have heard that or had the chance to read it. So something for people to add to their to be read lists.
Yes.
Next up, we are going to get into more of the nitty gritty of querying and what Maria is looking for when she opens up her submission box. That will be in the extended episode, which you can find at patreon.com/right and wrong.
I think I'm like, I'll leave it to the writers, the real
Okay.
writers.
Yeah.
So no, there's no danger.
Okay.
I don't think the world needs to hear from me.
Okay.
In that sense.
Sure. No time soon, at least. Okay,
No,
great.
exactly.
That's always fun to ask. Okay, awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much, Maria, for coming on the podcast and chatting with me and telling us all about your kind of career, how you got into publishing, and all of the query nitty gritty stuff. It's been really, really great chatting with you. Thank you so much.
It was so fun to speak to you, Jamie. Thank you for having me on.
Such a pleasure. And if anyone listening wants to keep up with what Maria is doing, you can find her on Twitter at Maria R. Whelan. You can find her on Instagram at Maria Whelan with 2 N's at the end. And to support this podcast, like, follow and subscribe, join the Patreon for ad-free extended episodes, and check out my other podcast, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. Thanks again, Maria, and thanks to everyone listening. We will catch you on the next episode.